Hey, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone. Welcome back to another edition of NBA Daily. Hope you had a good week. Hope you're excited going into the weekend. I am because it is the end of the NBA regular season, an amazing end to the year. We've got so many games that have so much meaning to go ahead and wrap up the year, specifically out there in the Western Conference. Everything is so undecided. Every single seed between 4 all the way down to 8 is pretty much up in the air. The Lakers are probably going to get 3. It would take a disastrous circumstance for them to not land in that spot, but everything else could shift drastically with the Nuggets right now at 4. They could very well end up at 8. Everything in between swapping places. We've got no clue what the plan is going to look like, what the first round matchups are going to be, and that is really exciting. And that includes, even going down to like the Kings and the Mavericks at the bottom of the Western Conference play-in tournament. But there's one team that I think most people thought would probably be in this picture at some point. In fact, I saw a tweet yesterday that said that 29 teams in the NBA right now are either involved in the play-in playoff picture or they have a lottery pick this year. There's one team that is not involved in either of them, and that is the Phoenix Suns, who have been one of the biggest disappointments that I personally have ever seen. They have just been a complete and utter disaster. It goes back to when they traded for KD, which I still think was a good move to go ahead and make. Kevin Durant's been really good for Phoenix in his time here, the half season and the 2 years following. He's been an all-NBA level player. He's not going to make it this year because he's not going to end up playing these 65 games required, but he's been really good. They've dealt with a few injuries here and there. Devin Booker has been kind of up and down a little bit this season. Not one of his better years. Bradley Beal, that trade was really the one that kind of sent them spiraling. Trading away Chris Paul, who's still pretty good with the San Antonio Spurs, for a guy who has one of the worst contracts I've ever seen, in addition to a no trade clause. They added Yusuf Nurkic, who wasn't very good in this season. Bad defense, not nearly enough cohesion from the overall supporting cast. It's been an absolute nightmare all over the place from the Phoenix Suns in basically every single way. So yeah, we kind of need to start looking forward to the future. What is it going to be like for the Phoenix Suns going into next year? And I think everybody kind of anticipates a Kevin Durant trade. We almost saw one at the deadline with KD getting traded away from traded from the Suns to the Golden State Warriors, where he previously played, but he said he didn't want to go ahead and have that happen. He would rather stick it out with Phoenix for the rest of the season. And I mean, now that's looking like it was a bad decision, but at least now it's pretty easily revisitable here in the summer. So I want to talk about some trade packages, some destinations for Kevin Durant. Again, it's been a really good season for him, all things considered. I know the team success hasn't been there, but the Suns' record, if you take a look at it when Kevin Durant is out there, it's vastly superior to when he's not. He, of course, did miss some time with injury, enough to disqualify him from All-NBA, but KD is still putting up the insane, highly efficient numbers that we're used to seeing from Kevin Durant. His longevity truly is not talked about enough, the fact that he's still this dominant of a scorer when he's getting into his late 30s, and I still think he's got 3-4 years in the tank, if not more. KD just feels like one of those guys where he's really not ever going to slow down. Really, I think the only thing that could stop him is if injuries continue to pile up. KD on the season, just under 27 points a night, 6 boards, 4.2 assists, over 50% shooting from the field, over 40% from 3, 43%. That's nuts. I mean, highly, highly efficient. It's just what Kevin Durant has always been, one of the league's top scorers. He was better this year getting downhill and attacking at the rim. There was that little piece of concerning information that he was really not ever scoring at the basket, but he kind of made that a point this season, and he was better in that regard than he's been over the past couple of years. KD had a monster season. It's typical from Kevin Durant, one of the best players to ever play the game. And I mean, it's unfortunate that it's kind of gone this way for him throughout the later stages of his career, because he had a lot of success with Oklahoma City. Then, of course, he won a couple championships with Golden State. But really, since he left the Warriors, which is crazy, it's been now 7 years since he played for Golden State. He's over in Brooklyn. Now he's been here in Phoenix. And it feels like there was another chapter. And when he was playing with Oklahoma City, when he was there for that long, it really did not feel like Kevin Durant was going to bounce around much, that maybe he'd leave to the Warriors and go to like one other team. But and now he's going to be on another team, probably, to go ahead and finish out his career. And honestly, that might not be the end of it. KD want to come to the Knicks? Interesting, Jay, but it's going to be hard for the Knicks to make a Kevin Durant trade package. Return to Golden State, maybe blessed, but it's hard for them to really make the money work. Although, I mean, a Steph, Jimmy, Draymond, they'd probably have to trade Draymond to make the money work. Or Jimmy, which I don't think they want to do because he's been so good since he's got there. But yeah, a Steph, Jimmy, Draymond, Kevin Durant quartet would be pretty awesome to watch. KD going through this because he's chasing those rings. Yeah, I mean, he probably could have just stayed in Oklahoma City and maybe would have gotten one. I'm a firm believer that if he played at OKC the next year, and the rumors are true that they could have gotten Al Horford if Kevin Durant stayed, the Thunder would have went ahead and won the championship. who would realistically want to trade for KD? Jimmy, I think a number of teams. It's going to depend on the asking price. The asking price in these trades that I made, it's pretty high because Kevin Durant is still that caliber of player. But we got something, I think it was Brian Windhorst, who said that the Suns might not get as much in return for KD that they really want. But honestly, they don't like have to trade Kevin Durant. I'm sure they would love to go ahead and restart, or that is what they ultimately should do. But if KD doesn't directly request a trade, I guess they don't have to. So if they're not getting great offers, then I mean, maybe they hold on to him. I'm not really sure. I would like to see Kevin Durant in a new situation. I want to see him get the chance to go out there and compete again. I know people are saying that he is ring chasing and he's been all over the place. As a Thunder fan, you know, there is some ill will from what happened when he left OKC. But even still, like, I mean, I'm over it at this point. I'd like to just see a player this good get the chance to go ahead and compete at the highest level still. Never got one in OKC because of LeBron. I mean, yeah, facing the Heatles was going to be pretty difficult Hawking days for sure. But let's get into some of these trade packages. I do see Roshan in the chat saying he should go back to OKC. I don't have an OKC one on here, but that's something we could talk about, like maybe what that package might look like when we get to the end. I want to start off with the Houston Rockets. This is the team that I think makes the most sense theoretically. They seemingly are going to add another star. If the playoffs don't go their way, they don't have to. It's not a necessity. But when they specifically went out there and got the Phoenix Suns draft picks this offseason, it made it pretty clear that they were angling for Devin Booker or Kevin Durant. And I think Book, honestly, is the better option for them, but I'm not sure if he's going to be available. So in this deal, they get Kevin Durant to add into this core. You give up Dylan Brooks, Reed Shepard, Jabari Smith Jr., Jacques Landale, and 2 first-round picks. The money works basically perfectly with this trade package and the first-round picks. It's just giving Phoenix back their assets. Maybe because you're throwing in a guy like Reed Shepard and Jabari Smith Jr., you could hold it to one. But I don't think the Suns are going to be willing to give up Kevin Durant to Houston specifically, unless they're getting back both of their assets. I think that is a high priority. And he comes into this Rockets team. He is older. You know, he's 36 years old, which is kind of concerning for a team that is a very, very young core between Ahmed and Şengün and Jalen Green, which you do get to keep Jalen Green in this deal. You don't have to go ahead and give him up. You instead give up Dylan Brooks, who Kevin Durant slots into the starting lineup for. Reed Shepard, who was just a top 5 pick and has been really good in moments when he's gotten the chance to actually play this season. But I think that you're willing to part ways if you can get a superstar like KD. Jabari Smith Jr., I think he's a really intriguing piece alongside Reed Shepard for the future over there in Phoenix. He could be a forward for the long term, someone who I truly believe is going to be a big time impactful player when it comes to winning as he gets into the best parts of his career. Jacques Landale also goes ahead and goes over here just as some salary filler, and you get your picks back if you are the Phoenix Suns. So yeah, this is the deal I have for the Houston Rockets. I think this one makes a lot of sense. It's one of my favorite overall packages to throw in there if I'm Phoenix, because you do get draft capital back. You get interesting young players. You could flip Dylan Brooks. Jacques Landale kind of exists for you too, which I guess is a cool thing. And then if you're the Rockets, you probably would want to get a younger star. Like I said, I think Devin Booker makes a little bit more sense. But if he's not available and you can get a guy like KD and roll in a lineup next year it depends if you hold on to Fred VanVleet, but you could do like Fred VanVleet, you could do Jalen Green, Amin Thompson, Kevin Durant, and Alperen Şengün. I mean, that's a pretty intimidating starting 5. You still have a lot of depth off the bench with, of course, Tari Eason is there. Steven Adams has been awesome. I mean, you get a reunion of Steven Adams and Kevin Durant, Oklahoma City Thunder legends right there. So the two of them go ahead and team back up in Houston. You still have like an Aaron Holiday, for example. The Rockets also, they've got draft capital they could use to flip for other moves, add more impactful pieces to this team. I think this team would be really terrifying in the West. Really, the only flaw I feel like right now with Houston is I don't know if they have a guy to lead them forward. It could end up being an Amin Thompson or Alperen Şengün down the line, but at least at this moment, I don't think anybody's there to lead them directly to a championship. You need that number one option. I think Kevin Durant could be that guy, and he gets to play alongside a really intriguing young, rapidly rising team. They don't have to go ahead and win the championship next year. He's got years to go ahead and kind of feel it out, see how it goes in Houston, and I think this would be a pretty good spot for him. Keep Jabari, please. It would be cool if they could keep Jabari. It's just to make the money work in almost any trade. I mean, you could give up Jalen Green then, and then maybe the money works a little bit better rather than Jacques Landale and Jabari Smith. But I think you'd probably rather keep Jalen Green if you're Houston than Jabari Smith in this situation, because, I mean, KD's kind of just going to slot in for one of Dylan Brooks or Jabari Smith in that starting lineup anyways. Would really be cool if the Sonics become an expansion team and he signs with them to finish his career. Victorious, that would be really cool. It would be cool to see KD sign back with the Seattle Supersonics for like maybe the last season or two of his career. I agree. I think that would be a pretty intriguing spot if they do end up coming to fruition at some point soon. I just don't know if they are going to. Don't need to give up both of Jabari and Reed. You can make that argument. The only problem is like Reed's making 10 mil, Jabari's making around that to make the money work. unless it's like Fred VanVleet, and I really don't think that's intriguing at all for Phoenix. It's really hard to make the money work out there for that deal. Jalen's not leaving for old Kevin Durant. That's my thing. I think you would rather trade Jabari Smith and Reed Shepard than Jalen Green at this point. So yeah, that is my deal for the Houston Rockets. Let's talk about some other ones. Next up, I have the San Antonio Spurs. You get another guy to play next to Wemby and De'Aaron Fox. And in this one, it's mainly draft capital. You give up Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, and 4 first-round picks, and these are valuable first-round picks. It's the Hawks picks over the next couple of years. This would probably include your first-round pick in this year's draft, which could likely be top 5, 6, 7-ish. So you go ahead and you give them multiple very intriguing draft pieces. You give up Devin Vassell, who is an intriguing young player, as well as Keldon Johnson. This deal is mainly centered around the draft capital that you're going to get from San Antonio. You're going to hope that the Atlanta Hawks don't play very well over the next couple of years. They're showing some signs of growth, but it's not like they're anywhere near a contender or anything. You could get those really intriguing draft picks. You could get a top 5 pick potentially this year from San Antonio, as well as 2 interesting young pieces. And with the Spurs, I mean, you get Kevin Durant. Wemby, of course, is very young. You don't have to go ahead and make a deal for a guy like KD. I don't think you have to rush it, but I also think it makes sense to add more and more talent to this team when you have Wemby on this rookie contract with the new CBA, with the money that KD's making. A player this good, I would definitely consider bringing in a guy like Kevin Durant. It's not maybe my first priority. I, again, think Devin Booker might make more sense for the San Antonio Spurs, putting him next to De'Aaron Fox and Wemby as a younger guy. But I mean, you bring in KD, a really, really good player to elevate this team. And if you have a big 3 of De'Aaron Fox, Victor Wembanyama, Kevin Durant, you still have Harrison Barnes over there, Jeremy Sohan, you've got a lot of really intriguing players, and I'm sure you could get guys to sign on vet minimums to join this team if you've got Wemby and KD out here. And if you're Kevin Durant, you want to try and ring chase at least one more time, I think hooking yourself to the Victor Wembanyama bandwagon might not be the worst way to go ahead and do it. You go to Texas, like kind of with Houston. It's not too far away from Phoenix. I think it's not too far. Texas is huge. I don't know. I don't know the geography of Texas. At least geographically, they're kind of close in that Southwest. So if he's gotten used to the weather or whatever, it's not a bad spot to be in. And he gets to play alongside one of the guys who could end up being one of the future GOATs. So yeah, that's my case for Kevin Durant in San Antonio. And I do ultimately think that'd be a place where he would be pretty happy. He gets to play alongside Chris Paul as well. CP3 stays in this deal, so that could be a pretty fun duo over there too. They've had a little bit of beef at times. The last time the Suns and the Spurs played when they were at Texas, it was Kevin Durant's homecoming. The two of them couldn't stop yapping at each other on the court. So maybe there is something a little bit beyond just some on-court beef, but I don't know. I think they include Barnes and Brandon instead of Devin. They could, Kevin, but I don't think you get this deal done without giving up a guy like Devin Vassell. I just don't think that's going to be a possibility. Shocker T saying, how would KD pair with Jokic? I think KD and Jokic would be incredible. And we'll actually talk about that a little bit later. I tried to make a trade to get Kevin Durant to Denver. So we'll talk about that a little bit later in the stream. Is OKC out of the realm of possibility? No, I don't think so. I think OKC is realistic if they end up falling short in this year's playoffs. We just kind of have to see that first, because if they perform like they did in the regular season and win the West, I just don't see a world where they cash anything in for KD at this point, especially because I don't really know what the relationship is like between KD and the front office at this moment. Rockets don't need KD. Yeah, boss, like they definitely don't need KD, but I do think he'd be a pretty welcome addition. Give him to the Pistons. I actually did try to drop a trade for KD to the Pistons, but it was kind of clunky with the money. Suns would need Castle in any deal with the Spurs. Maybe Smith. I just think then that probably becomes a deal breaker from San Antonio, and that kind of doesn't work out. Horrible trade for the Spurs if they did that deal. I really don't think so. Like, Vassell's awesome. Keldon's not been the best this season. I think this is fine. I think this is actually probably a bigger win for the Spurs than maybe the Suns. It depends what draft picks those 4 are. But I don't know. If I'm the Spurs, I think adding a guy like KD next to Wemby and De'Aaron Fox, I think that's super huge for me. Like, suddenly you become one of the scary teams in the Western Conference if you get good pieces to surround them. I'm telling you, the Nuggets, I mean, Master, we could have a Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant reunion in Denver, although, it sounds like from the reports we're getting, maybe Russ isn't going to be in Denver for the long term. Not really sure. Let's talk about the Memphis Grizzlies. Let's do a Grizzlies trade. This one breaks up the big 3. The Suns are going to go ahead and get Desmond Bane, Gigi Jackson, John Conchar, 2 firsts and a swap. The 2 firsts are from Memphis, and the reason that's 2 firsts is because when you have John Morant, you've got Kevin Durant, you've got Jaren Jackson Jr., Zach Edey, still a very deep team. They're pretty soon first round picks, they're picks within the next few years, you're going to be a really good team. So they're not very valuable first round picks. The swap could be a little bit later down the line. GG hasn't played as much this season. He's still an intriguing young player, but I think he's rawer than what he showed last season. John Conchar really not a very critical part of this team. The thing that hurts the most is giving up a Desmond Bane. But I do think ultimately if the Grizzlies ballot in the first round, then a trade like this is very realistic. I think they're going to make a big time swap of some kind. They're going to change up this big three because as much as I like, Ja, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson, all his players, it's not been the most successful trio over the course of the last few years. Like they've had some pretty good regular season success at times. They've slipped as of late. They've only won one playoff series, and a lot of that has been injuries. But I think over there in Memphis, after you fire Taylor Jenkins this late into the season, they're not getting desperate, but I think they're getting antsy. They want to see some improvement. They want to see this team be successful. And assuming they lose in the first round this year, which I think is the most likely outcome, I think they're willing to make a pretty big shift. Giving up Desmond Bane over there to Phoenix. If you're Phoenix, you get a relatively young guy who can come in and play alongside Devin Booker. If they want to continue to try and reshape this thing around D-Book and not go for a full rebuild, Bane is a good player to have, or you could flip him if you wanted to do that later. GG, a young player that can kind of do a little bit of both. He could both maybe help you be competitive now if he bounces back a little bit and he's still relatively young. Ellipsis in the chat saying like this doesn't nuke the depth. That's the thing too. You still have like a Brandon Clark as well. I mentioned Zach Edey. You still have him. You don't have to go ahead and give him up. You don't give up Scottie Pippen Jr. You've got a really good team still. John Conchar, he's just kind of whatever thrown to this deal. And then you get a couple of draft picks back. You get a swap. That one could be way later down the line when Kevin Durant is out of the picture. So you're not having to, just kind of hope that for some reason the Grizzlies implode over the next couple of years. You can bank on that one down the line. And yeah, overall, I feel like this is a pretty good trade for both sides. If you want kind of one of the best players possible, Desmond Bane is one of those guys. If you're Phoenix and they really do want to keep trying to be relatively competitive, that was one report that they don't want to go for a full rebuild quite yet. They would rather bring in more talent next to D-Book, that they don't want to trade him. So I don't think they're going for a full retool, but this is one that could help them pivot but still remain pretty competitive. And then you just try and go ahead and get rid of Bradley Beal if you could. It's a bad trade because the Grizzlies don't have a winning style. KD needs a system. I mean, Master, I feel like with the new head coach and you give him an offseason, I think they could build something up that works. Like Ja has been way better as of late. Jaren has been awesome this season. I really don't think so. I think KD can kind of slot into pretty much everything. Question, who will be the main scorer then on the Grizzlies? I think it is Kevin Durant. I think it would be KD, then Ja, then Jaren. And with the way Jaren's played this season, if he's your third option, that's amazing. Like I would absolutely love that if Jaren Jackson Jr. is my third option. And then again, we talked about the depth that you still have. You still have good defenders. You still have good offensive players. You could probably make a couple more moves, wheel and deal a little bit if you needed to. But yeah, this is probably what happens. Not something exactly like this, but I think something of this magnitude could go down in Memphis if they do end up struggling in the playoffs like it seems like they're going to. Okay, let's talk about the Miami Heat next. Miami gets Kevin Durant. If they want to continue to try and build around Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, you get Kel'el Ware, you get Duncan Robinson, Terry Rozier, Jaime Jaquez, and 3 first-round picks, specifically coming from Miami. Might have to throw a swap in here as well. But you get some pretty good value in Kel'el Ware, a really intriguing young player, a young big man to play alongside Devin Booker. You get a guy that can help you win now a little bit in Duncan Robinson, who I think is flippable as well in a future deal if you want to make one. Terry Rozier will be expiring. His contract is tough. I mean, you could just buy him out if you really wanted to, if you don't want to have all that money on the books and have him taking up minutes. It's been really bad this season, but it changes scenery. Maybe things are different. And Jaime Jaquez is someone who has kind of fallen out of the rotation a bit here in Miami. It's not been the best season for him, but I think Jaime Jaquez could be better in a different spot, and you give up a few first-round picks. You get a guy in KD who gives you someone next to Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, and the still remaining pretty solid pieces over there, although, I mean, it really doesn't matter for the Heat. They just turn anybody into a pretty talented player. I saw multiple people in the chat say don't want to give up Ware, and that's understandable. I think that is kind of the pivot point here for the Miami Heat. Are you willing to give up Kel'el Ware or not? If they're not willing to, then I think this deal doesn't end up happening, and that's fine. I don't think the Heat need to go this route. They don't have to add Kevin Durant. The reason I would say that maybe it could be interesting is because you do still have a lot of talent. And specifically talking from the perspective of what we've seen from Pat Riley over the years, he's not really a rebuild guy. He's going to retool. He's going to ship guys off to try and build this roster out a little bit. He doesn't really like the whole start from scratch type of thing. And Kevin Durant, adding a guy like him next to Bam and Tyler would be a way to go ahead and continue to retool. I think this team would be pretty good out there in the Eastern Conference. Are they a contender? I don't really know. It might depend on what pieces are surrounding those guys, but I ultimately do think this is a trade that could help them improve. It's not my favorite. If I'm the Heat, I'm probably not saying yes to this. 3 first, yikes, no. Yeah, Jay Wade, that's my thing, is also you give up some draft capital when you don't have much either as the Miami Heat. So I'd probably say no to this deal if I'm Miami, but I personally think the Heat need to go ahead and rebuild. But like Pat Riley doesn't do that. So this is something, if they continue to have that mindset, they could at least try something like this. You do get off a lot of money with Terry Rozier and Duncan Robinson. Of course, you bring it back in Kevin Durant. But if KD expires in a couple of years and you just decide to go ahead and let it go, then I don't think it's the end of the world. Who'd be Miami's fourth best player after this? Probably Andrew Wiggins. You still have Andrew Wiggins. I think the starting lineup would be you'd have Tyler, you'd have Wiggins, you'd probably do KD, Jovic, and Bam potentially. Or you could throw like a Haywood Highsmith in there as well. Might still have Davion Mitchell. Kyle Anderson is part of this team too. Like they still have a pretty good supporting cast in general. It's not the best in the world, but I still think it's fine. Well, that's a lot, but KD pair with Bam and Tyler would be interesting. Legacy wise, it would be bad for KD. I mean, I think going anywhere is kind of tough, Mike, when you think about the fact that he's this good of a player that's played in this many spots. But I kind of just think it's a necessity at this point. I mean, nothing's going to happen in Phoenix. But okay, that's the Heat trade. Let's talk about the last one that I like have fully drawn up, and maybe I can get into a couple of other scenarios. It's the Denver Nuggets. It's the Denver Nuggets getting Kevin Durant to put next to Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray. They do give up Michael Porter Jr. in this deal, and it's a lot of players. It's a lot of players. I'm going to go out there and say it. It's to make the money work because it's really hard if you don't give up Jamal Murray or Nikola Jokic to make this click. So it's MPJ, it's Zeke Naji, it's Deron Holmes, Julian Strawther, Hunter Tyson, 2 firsts, and a swap. It is a lot. It is a lot of players. And the concern with the Nuggets, one of them is the depth of this team. This would require them really just absolutely killing it in free agency, bringing kind of minimum guys. And, you would still have Jokic, you'd have KD, you'd have Aaron Gordon, you'd have Jamal Murray and Christian Brown. So you still have those five. So while you do get rid of theoretically a lot of depth, you have Peyton Watson as a first guy off the bench. You could bring in a couple of players as well in free agency on pretty low level contracts. And that could give you like a pretty solid 8. And a guy like KD, sure, you give up MPJ. He's younger and he would fit a similar mold, but he's not the shot creator, the consistent guy that Kevin Durant is. He gives you a whole new ceiling on the offensive end. I think KD and Jokic could be an amazing pairing. Imagine Jokic getting doubled in the post and he can kick it out to Kevin Durant. It would open up the game a lot more for Jamal Murray. This is a team that desperately needs shooting, and someone like Kevin Durant would be so consistent for them. Michael Porter Jr. shoots well from three, but he's not really a volume guy this season, not in the way that you would probably want to see from someone in that role. Kevin Durant is going to he can put up threes with the best of them if that's what you need. If you're the Phoenix Suns, you get some interesting picks and a swap from Denver over here, who doesn't have a lot going for them in like the 2030s unless Jokic is still here and playing at this level, which he very well could be. But also you bank on maybe this thing implodes, maybe it falls apart and suddenly Jokic ends up gone. You get a young big in Deron Holmes, a young guy in Julian Strawther, Zeke Naji, still relatively young, not super intriguing at this point. And then a guy, Michael Porter Jr., who gives you a wing, someone that could play alongside Devin Booker both now and for the future. If you want to continue to, again, retool rather than go for a full rebuild, or if you go rebuild, you could ship off Michael Porter Jr., you could keep him. There's a lot of routes you could go. The big issue is, what does this team look like defensively? I just saw you say that in the chat. What does this team do on the defensive end? And KD's been pretty good defensively this season. He's actually probably been one of the more reliable guys on that end for Phoenix. The question is it enough to kind of elevate this team? Because Jokic isn't a good defender. Jamal Murray's not really that guy on that end. Christian Brown's been pretty solid, like Aaron Gordon. Has taken a bit of a dip, I would say, defensively this season. And I think part of that is because they've asked him to carry a bigger offensive load with how the team has been struggling this season. And I think that's led to him just not having the same energy on the defensive end. So you bring in a scorer like Kevin Durant, and I think that clears up a little bit. On paper, I think it could work. And then you do have a guy like Peyton Watson off the bench. You have to find a new backup center other than DeAndre Jordan. So if you bring in someone somewhat competent on the defensive end down low, then ultimately that could work, I think. Yeah, I mean, you can maybe bring back Russell Westbrook. I know it's not been the prettiest always for the Nuggets with the Russell Westbrook experiment this season, but I do think it's something that could work. And I do think seeing Russ and KD play together one more time would be super fun. You want to talk about storylines, that is one that would be pretty intriguing. So this is my Nuggets trade. It took me a long time to draw this one up. This is the one that was the hardest because I sat here thinking, like, 5 players is a lot. You kind of got a gut. a lot of your roster. Now, the thing is, though, it's not a lot of like difference maker players. Like Hunter Tyson doesn't really play. Julian Strother, they've tried to utilize him this season, but he's not been the biggest impact guy. Durant Holmes out for the season with injury. You don't even know what he's going to look like going into next year. Zeke Naji has not been a factor this season. Really, the only guy that's been a big time factor has been Michael Porter Jr. And so if you're just swapping Michael Porter Jr. and Kevin Durant, I really think that this one is perfectly fine. Skadoosh in the trades or in the chat says an awful trade. Very fair. Different opinions on the trade right after I said I think it works pretty well. Mike saying this is the best so far. Okay. I can appreciate that. Yeah, let me know which of the trades was your favorite. I'm going to go back through and recap them real quick before I go ahead and get on out of here. So my trades, starting off, the Phoenix Suns send Kevin Durant over to the Houston Rockets for Dillon Brooks, Reed Sheppard, Jabari Smith Jr., Jacques Landale, and 2 first-round picks. The Suns get 2 intriguing young players in Reed and Jabari, and a guy in Dillon Brooks who can help them be somewhat competitive now if they want to retool, or they can go ahead and flip him. And of course, they get their picks back from the Houston Rockets as well. And if you're Houston, you add a guy who can fit seamlessly into your starting lineup and can really elevate this team. He is a bit older. I would kind of prefer Devin Booker if I'm picking a Suns trade target if I'm Houston, but if KD's the only guy available, I'm very willing to pull the trigger and bring in an elite scorer to this team that could really use a guy like that. For the San Antonio Spurs, it's Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, and 4 first-round picks. Specifically, this would probably require the Spurs having maybe a top 4 pick this year to throw in there, as well as some of the Hawks selections down the line, because they're not getting the same player equity that they would have got in a young player sense from the Houston Rockets with Reed Sheppard and Jabari. Devin Vassell, still relatively young, a better player than almost anybody in that trade. You do get also Keldon Johnson, who is relatively young, even if it's been a bit of a down season for him. And then if you were the Spurs, you add Victor Wembanyama, another co-star with a Kevin Durant. You've got De'Aaron Fox there already. When you have Wemby, in my opinion, on this rookie contract, you want to go ahead and bring in as much talent as possible. And hey, De'Aaron Fox, Kevin Durant, you still got Jeremy Sohan out there, Harrison Barnes, Chris Paul, Victor Wembanyama is a team that I think could be very competitive in the West next season. For the Memphis Grizzlies, it is Kevin Durant over to the Memphis Grizzlies for Desmond Bane, Gigi Jackson, John Conchar, 2 firsts and a swap. You break up the big 3 if you are Memphis, and that ultimately might sting a little bit, but I think that the Grizzlies are going to go into this offseason willing to make drastic moves, especially if they lose in the first round like it seems like they're going to. Kevin Durant could fit in seamlessly here. You still got a very deep team with Scottie Pippen Jr., you still have Vince Williams, you still have Brandon Clark, Zach Edey is still there as well, and you can make yourselves an extremely potent starting lineup. You now have like Jaren Jackson as the 3rd option. That is amazing. And then if you are the Phoenix Suns, you get a very intriguing young player in Desmond Bane who could be part of your core for the future going forward, as well as Gigi Jackson, a couple of interesting firsts and a swap down the line. For the Miami Heat, it is Kel'el Ware, Duncan Robinson, Terry Rozier, Jaime Jaquez, and 3 first-round picks. I know Heat fans don't want to give up Kel'el Ware. That's very fair, and I think Miami might ultimately say no to this. We know Pat Riley is very notoriously hard to deal with, but I do think Kevin Durant next to Bam and Tyler Hero could be intriguing. You still have Aaron Wiggins, or Andrew Wiggins rather, in that starting lineup as a Thunder fan. Got the savior of basketball in the mind too much. You've got Nikola Jovic as well still over there on that team. If you are Miami, maybe it's smarter to just go for a rebuild. In my opinion, that's kind of the way I would go, but we know Pat Riley likes to kind of force things. So if they want to finally land the star they've been looking for, Kevin Durant could be that guy. And if you're the Phoenix Suns, you get a very intriguing young big man in Kel'el Ware, some expiring salary with Terry Rozier, a young guy in Jaime Jaquez, and Duncan, who's just been pretty good for his entire career. And finally, the Suns send Kevin Durant over to the Nuggets for Michael Porter Jr., Zeke Naji, Durant Holmes, Julian Strother, Hunter Tyson, 2 firsts, and a swap. It is a lot of players, but MPJ is really the only guy out of that group that's been a big time difference maker this season for the Denver Nuggets. You add a guy in KD who gives you one of the most terrifying starting lineups I've ever seen, with Jamal Murray, with Christian Brown, with Aaron Gordon, Kevin Durant, and Nikola Jokic at the helm. I think Jokic playing alongside KD would be just devastating offensively, 2 of the best offensive players in the history of the game. You still have some decent pieces to go alongside them, like a Peyton Watson, for example. You could bring back Russell Westbrook if the drama that we've been hearing about isn't that big of a deal. I'm sure you could go ahead and get some veterans to sign on pretty cheap contracts to join this group if they had the chance to play alongside Nikola Jokic and Kevin Durant. I think guys are going to be willing to do that. And I mean, they were willing to fire Michael Malone a few days before the end of the season. I think they'd be willing to do something pretty drastic, especially if they go out in the first round and you need to make Nikola Jokic happy. I think trading MPJ and some guys that really don't play for you too much is not the end of the world. So That is my Kevin Durant trade package stream. I appreciate you tuning in to NBA Daily as always. I've been Cone, 3_Cone over on Twitter. And of course, on here, if you want to follow me here on the BR app, no underscore in the middle. If you want to go ahead and follow me on YouTube, I'm dropping my NBA award picks tonight. So if you want to see that, make sure and go check out the channel. But yeah, I'll see y'all on NBA Daily pretty soon here in the next few days. I appreciate you tuning in. Have a good weekend. Have a good end of the NBA regular season. I'll see y'all later. Peace.